Hi, and welcome to this video, The Hidden Truth About Narcissists, Wounded Empaths, and True Healing. Let's start with reframing the narcissist-empath dynamic. For decades, psychology has labeled narcissists as toxic, manipulative, and nearly impossible to change. Meanwhile, empaths have been framed as their helpless victims. But what if this narrative is incomplete? What if narcissism isn't just a disorder, but a trauma-adaptive identity? And what if the wounded empath isn't just a victim, but an active participant in a subconscious cycle of pain? This video dives into the deeper truth of the narcissist-empath dynamic, why it exists, and most importantly, how to break it for good. Let's start with the core wound, the origins of the narcissist and a wounded empath. Again, I repeat the truth about narcissism, that it is not a disorder, but it is a trauma response. Narcissism is often labeled as a personality disorder, but this definition limits the true understanding of what is happening beneath the surface. At its core, narcissism is an ego protection mechanism rooted in deep, unresolved childhood trauma. Narcissists are not inherently malicious. They are deeply wounded. Their behaviors, control, manipulation, and grandiosity are not signs of strength, but rather masks for an unbearable sense of shame and fear of rejection. So what creates a narcissist? At some point in childhood, a narcissist was deeply wounded, usually by emotional neglect, conditional love, or outright abuse. But instead of learning to process this pain, they developed a shame-based survival strategy. The extreme fear of being seen as not enough creates an illusion of superiority. They have a crippling self-doubt, which is overcompensated with control, manipulation, and dominance. They have unmet needs for unconditional love and therefore seek external validation at all costs. A child's psyche is highly adaptable. When their emotional needs are repeatedly denied or used as leverage, they learn that vulnerability is dangerous. To survive, they construct an impenetrable fortress of self-importance, not because they feel superior, but because the alternative is facing a deep-seated fear of unworthiness. This is why narcissists are hypersensitive to criticism. Beneath their confidence lies a fragile self-image, one they must protect at all costs. However, no narcissist can exist in isolation. They require a source of emotional supply, and this is where the wounded empath enters the equation. So let's talk about why wounded empaths attract toxic relationships. Empaths, especially those who identify as healers or fixers or peacekeepers or over-responsible ones, often find themselves drawn to narcissists. The question, of course, is why? The answer is simple yet profound. Because the wounded empath carry unhealed childhood wounds of their own. Because their subconscious believes they must earn love through sacrifice, because they have suppressed their own wounded masculine energy. Empaths tend to see the hidden potential in others, often mistaking trauma bonding for love. Their deep compassion allows them to see the light within the narcissist, the light behind the toxic wall, the part buried beneath layers of pain. Most wounded empaths have an internalized belief: if I love hard enough, I will finally be chosen, seen, valued, and validated. And this belief does not come from nowhere. It is a trauma response as well, shaped by childhood experiences where love was conditional, inconsistent, or absent. This is why wounded empaths don't just attract narcissists, they are magnetized to them. The empath subconsciously believes that if they can heal the narcissist, they will finally receive the love they never got as a child. So the roots of this trauma, how childhood wounding and transgenerational pain shape us. This part is about the family dynamic, parentification, and emotional scarcity. One of the most profound yet overlooked contributors to both narcissism and the wounded empath is parentification, when a child unconsciously steps into an adult role to meet the emotional needs of a parent. Just two examples. Example number one, the son as the child partner. When a mother is a wounded empath and the father is emotionally unavailable, the mother often experiences unfulfilled emotional needs. In the absence of emotional intimacy with her biological partner, she may consciously or unconsciously turn to her eldest son for emotional support. The son, in turn, senses his mother's emotional void and steps into an unnatural role, the surrogate partner. He learns to be hyper-attuned to his mother's needs, attempting to fulfill the emotional role that the father has vacated. This dynamic can create a dangerous illusion. The son believes he has taken over the father's emotional role, leading to a false sense of superiority and control. However, the mother remains loyal to her real partner, the father, and inevitably choosing him over the child in moments of conflict. Therefore, the son experiences this as betrayal and emotional rejection, reinforcing deep wounds of abandonment. And this cycle instills the wounded protector archetype, where the son grows up believing that love must be earned through self-sacrifice, and that his needs are secondary to the needs of others. Another example, the daughter in the emotional scarcity cycle. In a father-daughter dynamics, an emotionally distant father creates emotional scarcity, where both the mother and the daughter compete for limited affection and validation. The daughter longs for her father's love but finds that his emotional resources are already stretched thin between his partner and his role as a provider. This leads to an unconscious rivalry between the mother and the daughter, where both are seeking emotional intimacy from the same man. The mother may even perceive the daughter as a competitor rather than a child, causing further rejection and emotional pain. In both cases, in both examples, whether as a son in a child partner role or a daughter in an emotional scarcity role, the child learns a dangerous lesson. Lesson number one, love is conditional, not unconditional. Emotional needs are met only when you earn them. You have to do or be something. And sacrifice, self-sacrifice, is required for connection. This childhood imprint sets the stage for future toxic relationships where the wounded empath is drawn to emotionally unavailable partners, endlessly trying to win their love. And these were just two examples of how childhood imprints and experiences shape the wounded empath. When we look at the narcissist, the narcissism expert Sam Vaknin speaks about the mother wound or dead mother syndrome. Vaknin introduces the concept of the dead mother, referring to mothers who are emotionally unavailable or detached. This emotional absence can stem from various factors, including depression, trauma, or narcissistic tendencies. Children of such mothers often experience feelings of abandonment and unworthiness, leading them to construct a false self as a defense mechanism. And this facade becomes a means to seek validation and love that were absent during their formative years, potentially laying the groundwork for narcissistic behaviors. Vaknin also examines the role of fathers in the development of narcissism, identifying various typologies. The absent or weak fathers, fathers who are physically or emotionally absent, fail to provide adequate role models, leading children to develop narcissistic traits as compensatory mechanisms. Or the authoritarian father. Overly controlling fathers can instill feelings of inadequacy in their children, prompting them to adopt narcissistic defenses to assert their worth. Or they even had narcissistic fathers. Fathers with narcissistic traits may model dysfunctional behaviors, normalizing and perpetuating narcissism in their offspring. And while fathers may not directly cause narcissism, their behaviors and the environment they create can significantly influence how narcissistic traits manifest and evolve in their children. For a more comprehensive analysis, Vaknin's discussions on this topic can be found on YouTube as well. Understanding these parental influences is crucial in comprehending the origins and manifestations of narcissistic personality traits, offering pathways for healing and intervention. So back to the symbiotic wound between narcissists and empath, the wounded empath. Both the narcissist and the wounded empath are products of the same dysfunctional family dynamics. The narcissist copes by rejecting vulnerability and adopting control. The empath, the wounded empath, copes by rejecting self-worth and adopting self-sacrifice. And this creates a perfect yet toxic match, where the narcissist needs validation and the empath needs to give it. Let's draw some conclusions, like how to break free from family wounds. Understanding these patterns is the first step toward healing. Breaking free requires recognizing how childhood family dynamics shape adult relationships. Releasing the belief that love must be earned through sacrifice. Healing the inner child who felt abandoned, betrayed, or emotionally neglected. Reclaiming self-worth and learning to create healthy, balanced relationships. Healing is not just about breaking trauma bonds, it's about creating a new blueprint for love, self-worth, and emotional freedom. Therefore, I would like to point out that the responsibility for a narcissistic relationship or connection also lays with the wounded empath. It's the narcissist that needs a supplier for their toxic manipulative power games. At the same time, it's also the wounded empath that sees an energetic opportunity to make up for something that went wrong during their childhood, making a parent emotionally available that couldn't be made emotionally available. Excuse me. And this is what they blame themselves for. Therefore, I state that the wounded empath is mainly guilt-driven and is constantly searching for forgiveness. In this case, through the narcissist whose agenda merely exists out of control, dominance, and punishment of the wounded empath. But without a wounded empath, a narcissist has no more suppliers, since the healed empath will immediately set healthy boundaries. And let's talk a bit of utopian talk. Imagine all wounded empaths find redemption for the childhood guilt of not doing enough to find redemption for this guilt. This leads to scarcity when it comes to the supply for narcissists in this world. Without wounded empath, there is no narc supply. Would that not force any narcissist to finally and eventually seek healing and redemption as well? Because a narcissist without supply will become desperate. Finally realizing that there is also something from the past on their plate that needs to be recognized, acknowledged, accepted, and healed. Wouldn't that be something? In the next video, I will dive deeper into answering this question more elaborately. So, see you next time. Thank you for watching. Bye.